Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, You're Hired, Connecting Social Emotional Learning to Career Readiness, hosted by Boys Town Community Services. I am Lynette Zurich. I'm a national training consultant here at Boys Town in Boys Town, Nebraska. A little bit about me. I was a teacher in Phoenix, Arizona for 11 years, worked with students of all ages, have used Boys Town's education model in many classrooms and sites around the country. And the biggest thing about the Boys Town model that I've seen is the improvement in the relationships between students and their peers and students and the adults on their campuses, which is kind of what today's webinar is all about, is building those relationships in one sphere and moving them to another sphere. Our mission here at Boys Town is changing the way America cares for children, families, and communities by providing and promoting an integrated continuum of care that instills Boys Town values to strengthen body, mind, and spirit. And what we do here at Boys Town is we strengthen communities as we support children and families seeking healing. The healing might be related to past trauma, relational challenges, or even mental health concerns. Boys Town, for nearly 100 years, has provided a range of services to meet children and families where they are at and to serve them in the greatest capacity possible. Boys Town also works hard to empower schools to effectively deal with the ever-increasing challenges that present themselves each day. Our research-driven and supported education model provides schools and programs with a safe, positive, and proactive approach to teaching pro-social behaviors. It provides multi-tiered support for students with variable needs while increasing the consistency and effectiveness of staff. Let's take a look at our objectives today. Up first, we're going to look at increasing the students' understanding of the importance of being career ready, utilize social emotional learning strategies to provide the foundation students need for long-term success, and teach skills that promote readiness for students preparing to leave high school. Over the years, we've been collecting data and feedback in a variety of resources, asking employers what they're noticing as the biggest needs for their new hires and those students leaving school, what they need to be successful in the workplace. The National Association of Colleges and Employers have listed soft skills as the biggest need. Soft skills are those workforce readiness skills that are interpersonal in nature, which include those personal qualities, characteristics, and attitudes, and that they are socially and emotionally capable to navigate the professional world outside of school. Looking at our first objective, is to increase understanding the importance of being career ready. As educators, we know the importance of social skills for our students. We teach them, guide our students to use them, and say things similar to, "You're going to need this when you leave school." But oftentimes we fail to adequately provide the rationale for why these skills are so important. Students, just like us, the rationale is what makes the difference between them buying into what we are asking of them versus just treating it as another thing I'm learning. So it's important that when we are teaching our students social skills and that we're really intentional with our practice and connecting them to employability after they leave school. According to the Association for Career and Technical Education, career readiness involves 3 areas: core academics, employability skills, and those technical job-specific skills. When we're talking about those core academic skills, it's the ability to apply skills to concrete situations in order to function in the workplace and in routine daily activities. Those employability skills, such as critical thinking and responsibility, are essential in any career area. And job-specific skills are related to their chosen and specific career path. These skills have been emphasized in numerous research studies, and we find very broad categories of skill being referred back to as we ask employers what they feel their new employees are most needing. They say that the employability skills, again, those soft skills, are the most critical to workplace success. And while there are others, one of the more recent research collections and studies highlight these 5 as the top skills of importance: leadership, teamwork, communication, problem solving, and work ethic. Are they all inclusive? Not necessarily, but they're the top 5 that if you pull up multiple areas of research, you will find these 5 are very common. So how in your classroom do you already teach these skills that these employers are looking for? Feel free to type in the chat message box. And for example, in my classroom, when we're focusing on teamwork and team building, we practice responsible active listening and making sure that everyone's heard. I see observations and collaboration with all students, interviewing, problem solving. Role playing, fantastic. Role playing and that practice we're going to talk about later, but practice is vital when it comes to taking these skills from the classroom scene into the workplace. Critical thinking with observation. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Now, linking some of those, what's a skill that you could possibly utilize to help students practice or incorporate that broader category into their daily social interactions? Thank you for sharing, Wendy. She says our teachers give employability grades for things like being on time, working with others, cooperating, and meeting deadlines. Excellent. Time management. All very important, smaller skills that feed into those bigger, broader categories. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So, speaking about social and emotional learning, we're going to look at specific strategies to provide the foundation students need for long-term success. Social and emotional learning is the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to manage their emotions, set goals, show empathy, establish relationships, and make responsible decisions. Let's take a closer look at at our domains, starting with self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and label your emotions, identify triggers, and accurately recognize your strengths and limitations. We know that youth that are more self-aware tend to exhibit self-confidence and are more prepared and hopeful for the future. One of the social skills that we can have our students practice and master for self-awareness is teaching them to use self-monitoring and self-reflection, thinking about their behaviors you're engaging in and the feelings that they're having, correctly identifying and labeling their behaviors and feelings, thinking about whether these are appropriate for the current situation, and identifying alternative behaviors that would be more productive. And so that skill, do you think your students naturally come prepared with that skill? I think the overall answer would be no. And so again, these skills are able to be taught, practiced, and mastered with time so that our students are able to make them an innate part of them. Good. Yes, they need to build on experiences before they can gain that confidence. Very good. Thank you for sharing, Fred. Now, looking at self-management, which is the ability to set plans and work towards goals, manage stress, regulate impulses and emotions. Right? This is that ability to manage themselves and regulate their impulses. And we all know that our students have, some of them have great self-control and others of them really struggle with the ability to control whatever pops into their head, whatever they want to do at that particular moment. And so using skills to help them practice that sense of self-management will help them to achieve their goals. A skill that we can teach and have our students master is using anger control strategies. Many of our students, when they get angry, they feel it and they let it go. And oftentimes that leads to those big negative consequences that they remove the student from the learning environment, and they cause these unsatisfactory or unsatisfying consequences. So if we can teach our students to use anger control strategies, we'll see them be able to self-regulate and be able to maintain their composure. So we do that by teach them to monitor their body's feelings and their breathing, focusing on those deep, slow breaths, continuing until with the breathing until they feel their body relax, asking for a few minutes alone, or instructing yourself to relax. So again, we're teaching our students these specific behaviors, these skills, so that they can advocate for themselves when they need a minute. And we, again, because it's been taught, we know that they can responsibly complete those tasks. Shifting into social awareness, our students are looking at identifying social cues, which we know to be difficult for all students, but especially our students with autism spectrum disorder. And so we want to make sure that we are intentional in our teaching of what different social responses look like, so that they can learn those approximations and become aware of them, to predict others' feelings and reactions, and to understand other points of views or perspectives. Social awareness is just that ability to exhibit empathy and identify certain key happenings so that they can read their environment and be receptive to the feedback that they're receiving. And this increases the likelihood that a child will develop those positive relationships. A skill that we can help our students master that will help them with that social awareness is showing sensitivity to others. And so just being aware of others that are unique or different to who we are and how we process the world. So expressing interest and concern for others, recognizing that disabled people deserve the same respect as others, apologizing for hurting someone's feelings or causing harm, whether it's intentional or unintentional. A lot of times we fall into the whole, I didn't mean that, I'm sorry, it came out wrong, and we don't address that it was an unintentional, but it still caused harm. And then treating others of different race, religion, and backgrounds the same way that you would like to be treated. And again, it might sound like common sense to us, but these are very specific skills that we have seen students lack. And so making sure, again, that we're teaching them and we're having them practice will help them be successful in the workplace and all components of their life. Looking at relationship skills. This is how we make friends, communicate with others, provide help to those who need it. Right? The ability to build relationships is vital in school, in their family, with their friends, and in the workplace as well. So students that are able to connect with others and build a sort of base relationship, we're able to see them bond and flourish with others, and communication, we know, is essential to being successful in the workplace. One of the skills we can teach is following rules, and so taking rules into the context of different areas, be it school, life, or work. Learning what rules apply to the current situation. Adjust your behavior so you are following the rules exactly. Refraining from bending rules, and if you have questions, to find the appropriate adult to ask questions. So knowing that it's okay to ask questions if you're unsure how to delve into this area of life. Looking at responsible decision making. This is, I feel like, what our goal is as educators and the adults in youth's lives, is to get them to a point where the decisions that they're making, we know that they're going to make the most responsible choice that they're able to. And again, this comes from intentional teaching. We have to be intentional about how we guide our students to make these responsible decisions. We want to make sure that they're reflecting on how their current choices affect the future. Research shows cognitively that most students focus on the present. They're egotistical and they have a hard time of moving thinking past this current day. And so really connecting with how the choices that they're making now connect to and it will impact their future decisions and their options. Identifying problems when making decisions and generating alternative options, and negotiating fairly. So again, the ability to make those responsible decisions, but also take into consideration other people's feelings and needs. A related social skill for responsible decision making is using structured problem solving, defining the problem situation, generating two or more options, looking at each option's potential disadvantages and their possible potential advantages, and then deciding on the best solution. This skill is vital, and we want students to process the negative as well as the positive, because again, oftentimes they can't see how the more convenient or easy decision will have a long-lasting negative impact versus the more difficult decision now. So if your students were fully competent in these domains, do you think they would be more successful in school, at work, or in life? And do your students come to your classroom with these skills mastered? Go ahead and type into the box, share your thoughts. They don't, yeah. And so most likely for most of us, the answer is no, that they don't come to us with the perfect little bow on. Yes, and you're right, some students do, but just like in academics, many of our students have holes, and so the same thing applies to behavior. They don't come equipped with them, but they are desperately needed. 100% agree. And then they might not even know what those skills are. Absolutely, which is where we come in, and that's why we have those social skills that we and the programs that we have to help teachers help our students master these skills. So here we are. We are at the what, the social skills and how to teach them. So when we've looked at the career readiness, we've looked at the domains of SEL. So here's our education model. Well, what you'll find is as you begin to teach social skills to your students, your teachers will begin to use them on each other. So that is a very solid wish. And we do know that even adults sometimes have skill deficits, but we can help them as well. So looking at the Boys Town model, the basis of the foundation of the Boys Town model is to help children and families build healthy relationships and to empower children and family to make good decisions on their own. Two components, two domains of SEL that we just reviewed. So that's the core. And then the education model that we've derived provides the curriculum of those life-specific skills and teaching methods that support those skills within the curriculum. So again, we've taken those domains and we have built a set of skills and curriculum to teach them in the classroom. When we begin teaching these skills, we focus on the scope of just the school and how to use them in school. And then as they demonstrate that mastery, we start to look at taking the context from school to home to social and eventually into that workspace. Here are those same 5 skills from earlier that the job survey gave us: leadership, teamwork, communication, problem solving, and work ethic. And we've taken a set of 16 skills and split them up under where they're not just in one category, most likely, but the most bang for your buck in teaching the broader category. So Boys Town has 16 social skills, and they're not the end all be all, but they're the initial 16 that we focus on in our programs because our research has shown that as students can master and demonstrate these 16 skills, their success rate for academics, for social interactions, and their need for discipline my strategies are going to go off. Sorry. So we see as they master these that their ability to build relationships and be socially successful go up, and their discipline needs tend to diminish. If your students could master 6 of these skills, do you think their behavior would improve? And would they be more prepared for the workplace? What do you think? Share your thoughts, please. The more the better. Absolutely. More successful at school and work. I think in practice they could be ready. Just following instructions, right? At the basic core. Following instructions would be beneficial. I think we can all agree that as our students can master more of these social skills, they would be more successful in the classroom, in life, and in work. A survey was conducted where they asked graduating seniors to rate their proficiency in their work ethic. And 89.4% of those students questioned with resounding confidence said that they were ready to go. They had the work ethic needed to be successful in their career of choice. Yet when we asked their employers the same question about their new hires, it came back that only 42.5% of those employers felt as though their new hires fresh from college were ready to go. So there are many reasons for this disparity. We have the optimism of youth. They're feeling prepared in their teaching and their learning and all those ideals and the theories that they've been working so hard on for the last 4 to 5 years. And then there's just that reality when they come into the workplace. They may have the book smarts, they have their technical skills, but again, we're seeing time and time again that those soft skills for teamwork and for relationships are just not solid. And they are what's most vital to being successful in the workforce. So 16 basic skills Boys Town education model uses from their preschool programs all the way up to our high school programs. We know that there are more skills than that. And so the Boys Town Press and the educators here have come up with an additional 183 social skills for youth. And they go from, again, those very basic skills to more complex life skills. So what we've done is we've task analyzed a variety of different behaviors and skills that we feel students need practice and work on. And so we've task analyzed, again, 183, but you can also task analyze any specific skill that comes across your classroom from year to year. We look at them being focused. And so again, a very narrow focus. We don't want to embed other skills within until we start looking at those more complex skills. We're going to look and make sure that those behaviors are able to be modeled so that we can determine whether or not they're meeting the criteria. The steps are specific and observable, and they're presented in the order of performance. Let's take a look at some of the skills that we offer in our resources. I am so sorry about that slide. We'll look at these three. I'm sorry about the slides mix up. So one of our basic core 16 skills is disagreeing appropriately. Looking at the person, use a pleasant voice, tell why you feel differently, and give a reason. And then listen to the other person. You'll notice that it's 5 quick steps. They're all they're measurable. You can hear or see them. Why might teaching this specific skill be important to our students, disagreeing appropriately? If your students could exhibit disagreeing appropriately, do you think it would benefit them and help them get along with others, keep them out of trouble? An inappropriate disagreement can cause or exacerbate conflict. Absolutely. Yeah, they're not great at it, and it's also important in the workplace. Absolutely. If I disagree with a coworker or I disagree with my boss, I need to handle that a specific way. I can't just, lose my self-control and say whatever I want without repercussion. I need to be very mindful. All right, our students, to them, a disagreement means to yell and fight. And if they could disagree appropriately, giving their reason or feeling differently, they might be able to see if they are mistaken in their thoughts. Good. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Yes, if we can get our students to disagree appropriately, we are already teaching them a skill that's going to be help them be more successful in school. It's going to be more successful at home and in the workplace. Good. So one of our more complex skills that we have is interviewing for a job. Right? And the steps for interviewing for a job are: dress neatly and appropriately for the interview. 2, introduce yourself enthusiastically to the interviewer. 3, answer all questions honestly and calmly. 4, emphasize your strengths as well as what you could still learn or what you would still need to learn. 5, ask any questions you have about the job at the conclusion of the interview. And 6, thank the person for his or her time. Notice the difference in the steps from disagreeing appropriately to interviewing for a job. You'll notice that our basic skill of disagreeing appropriately, again, those steps are brief and they are easy to observe and monitor. When we look at interviewing for a job, those steps become more complex out of necessity. It's a much higher order skill to interview for a job. And if you look at step number 2, introducing yourself enthusiastically to your interviewer, that's a generalized version of greeting others. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see our basic skill of greeting others, where you look at the person, use a pleasant voice, or say hi or hello. Okay, and so again, we teach the basics first, and as our students mature, age, and they need to have a different context for the skill modifies itself naturally so that it grows with the students and their purpose. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about generalizing. So generalizing is where we take a skill. So let's use greeting others, for example. Look at the person, use a pleasant voice, say hi or hello. This works in almost all settings. However, we know that we come across others in our lives where our interaction may be different. So we may meet our grandmother, a teacher, or friends, and how we greet them changes just a little bit. Right? When I greet my grandmother, I still look at her and I still use a pleasant voice, but it's probably going to be more boisterous, more emotional, because I'm so happy to see my grandma. Say, hi, Grandma, and I'm probably going to give her a hug, okay, because she's my grandma, and that's that level of comfort and that social awareness that we are working with our students. Then we have our greeting a teacher. Again, you're still going to look at the person, you're going to use a pleasant voice, and say hi or hello. Now, even this may vary depending on your relationship with the student. You may have a fancy high five, or you may hug as well, but it's important that we are teaching our students that that interaction does look different than when you greet your grandmother or a family member, or as we look at our greeting a friend. Looking at the person, use a pleasant voice, and say hi or what's up, right? And then we may have a fist bump, a hug, one of those crazy, involved high five greetings like on Will Smith, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. They have the crazy foot hook and everything. Or it might just be a simple head nod. Sup. And again, it varies depending on the relationship built with the person. So now when we look at our interviewer, when I greet an interviewer, that's going to look different than the other 3 examples we've already used. I'm still going to look at the person. I'm still going to use a pleasant voice. I'm going to make sure that I am introducing myself this time, because this is the first time that I've met the person. So I'm going to say, hello, my name is Lynette Zurich. And I'm going to then extend my hand to shake their hand. And this is even a skill that you'll have to break down and teach intentionally as well. Many of our students might not know the appropriate general business handshake. We'll have to talk about grip strength and the rigorous amount of shaking and how long is too long and how, powerful is my extending, and just really making sure that we are practicing it to prepare our students for usage out in the professional world. Any questions about generalizing? All right, let's move on. So the skills are the what, and now we're going to talk about the how. So developing those skills through teaching. So some of my kiddos are stuck in hug familiar greetings. They need to understand when to vary greetings. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that thought. And you're right. And again, though, they're not going to know the importance of varying those greetings unless we're intentional in our instruction and we set up time for them to practice those different interactions. We do an activity where we have a participant act as the student, and then we bring in 4 other adults to be the different roles: teacher, friend, grandma, and even a stranger. And we talk about the differences that we see the quote-unquote student engage in as they're greeting those different people. And that's an activity that can be brought right into your classroom if you want to help your students vary those greetings with others. So let's look at teaching our skills and developing those skills. We focus on... They should know that some cultures... Absolutely. And we do know that there are cultures where handshakes, eye contact, or initiating a greeting to an older person may be considered impolite. Absolutely. And that's where generalizing and code switching come into play. And it's important that while cultures and communities do have these different approaches to what is considered respectful or impolite, is that they need to be able to navigate those different social spheres that they're coming across. And when we're in an interview, most likely the more accepted form of greeting is going to be taking that initiative to introduce yourself and offer the handshake. But again, you'll need to prepare your students for those differences and knowing what is appropriate and what would be viewed as inappropriate. So looking at teaching the skills, we call our teaching of the skills proactive teaching, and looking at teaching them at neutral times before any disturbances or escalated behaviors come into play. We're going to look at teaching them during calm, intentional times. We have planned teaching and blended teaching are our 2 primary forms of being proactive about teaching our skills. When we look at planned teaching, there are 4 components. We introduce the skill. And again, we're going to take the time to introduce what we're doing and how we're going to work on it. We're going to describe those appropriate behaviors. Oftentimes when we're in planned teaching, this is a new skill, a skill that they haven't had much exposure to. And we're going to, or it might be a difficult skill. So it might be new or it might be difficult. And we don't want to leave what our expectations are up to assumptions. Again, we know that if we leave our students to interpret what our expectations are, oftentimes they aren't the same. They don't agree with what we deem to be appropriate. So we want to take the guesswork out of it by giving them the behaviors we expect to see. We're going to then give a reason, and this reason can be connected to how it works in your classroom, why it's important that they do it in your classroom, but also, again, why it's important to exhibit this behavior in the workplace or for getting a job. And then we're going to have them practice. Research shows that the more active students become in their learning, the more retention they have. So as a student listens to a lecture, reads, writes, the percentage of retention goes up. And when we get to practice, the percentage jumps up to 75% retention. So we're going, and then we have our students practice, model, and exhibit those behaviors, and the retention just jumps up. And we know even from there, if we can get our students to practice these skills with mastery, if we can get them to then teach the skills to others, their retention goes up to 90%. So again, being actively involved in their learning, we'll see an increase in retention. Cheyenne, I see your comment. Very interested in how we can teach employers to navigate code switching as well when they interact with students from various cultures. They would need to just make sure that they are also culturally informed. But there is also a sense of the need for, if the student and the employee are coming into that space, that interviewing, that there isn't kind of an expectation that they're going to meet the cultural beliefs of the person conducting the interview. Sorry, I'm reading some of your messages. Always taking the approach of inclusivity, space and place. Do expected behaviors in each setting you're in. I've always made the parallel between word choice in academic professional settings versus with friends. I think there's a unity there with teaching employers. I wonder what work is being done on that end. One thing we can do is help to teach students to educate others on their culture. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your comments. They're very insightful. So let's look at an example of planned teaching in action. So as a teacher, we're going to be going into teams on this project. A quick reminder, everyone should have input. Keep your conversations on topic and remember to keep working until the bell rings. This will help you meet your deadline. So let's see how we do. You have 20 minutes. So with practice, what you'll notice is this practice, it wasn't role play. It was just go out and do it. And the teacher would be monitoring the space, providing praise and support for students that are on task and exhibiting those appropriate behaviors, and also providing feedback and support for those students that need a gentle reminder of what they should be doing. Another type of skill teaching we use is blended teaching. So planned teaching is very much the skill in isolation and using the skill in academics. When we look at blended teaching, we're combining the skill with our academic content at the same time. So for example, when we think of boiling water, or water that's about ready to boil, what are some of the signs water gives as it warms up? Feel free to enter into the chat box. Starts to bubble, simmers, gives off heat, bubbles, starts bubbling. Good, and as the water approaches the boiling point, what do we start to see? Steam, yes. The bubbles may go from that quiet sort of boil to more movement, right? More bubbles, bigger bubbles, that violent sort of bubbling, boiling. We start getting the splatter, starts getting outside of the pot. Now connect that to how people process when they start to get frustrated or they begin to boil. So what are some signs that people then give as they become upset? They raise their voice. Rapid speech. Oh, facial expressions. Yes, angry faces. Body changes. Posturing, yep. Increased breathing pattern. Sarcasm. Colors change in the face, absolutely. And as it goes from just that mild agitation, that mild frustration, what starts to happen as they get more upset? Reasoning goes away. Some stay quiet. Some show no facial expression, right? They might have a shifted body language, though. There are a lot of nonverbal cues as well versus what we can see. And what happens when a person gets to the point where they can't control that anger anymore? What do we typically see or hear? Yeah, we see them they're unable to control themselves, and just like that boiling water starts to splatter out of the pot, we're seeing our behaviors escalating, right? Screaming, hitting, pounding fists. Good. Right? Those are all exhibits that we've reached that boiling point, that we can't control it anymore. And so it's leaving our body. Yeah, walking out, walking away, right? That's probably one of the more frustrating things, yeah, when it becomes passive aggressive. I am so mad, I'm just going to leave. Oof. No, express your opinions appropriately or your feelings appropriately. Good. Thank you so much again for sharing. So again, blended teaching is just we know that our time as educators is limited. Yes, passive aggressive is quite common in office settings, right? They're trying to not outburst, but then it comes off as passive aggressive, which is just as bad as an overt active aggressive outburst. Flapping. Yeah, the kind of like the stemming for our autistic friends, students. Yes, I agree. Good. So again, with blended teaching, it's taking that vital time that we already know is cut short and taxed, and embedding those skills within the content that we're already teaching. The Boys Town Press offers several resources that can help support developing skills as you are deciding to teach different skills in your classroom. Our hope is that we are adding to your instruction but not adding work. And so we have these resources that make practice fun, engaging, academically embedded. And again, we're trying to give you those resources to help you take the preparation and planning off of your plate, because we know that your time again is valuable and precious. BoystownTraining.org is our website, and if you go to the resources tab, you'll find a variety of resources set up to help you. You can ask trainers specific questions if you have a question that, or a specific scenario maybe that you could use some extra help with. You can ask one of the trainers on our team. We have videos of social skills in action. We have social media accounts and all the popular medias. And we have blogs that are written monthly on a variety of topics, from social justice to bullying to technology use. There's articles of interest. We have even more free lesson plans and assignments tied to social skills, linked directly to our Boys Town Press catalog. And just like you are joining us today for a webinar, we do have our webinars recorded and many more up for access. Let's go back to our initial questions of the day. So again, here are 5 broad skill categories that employers are saying our students need better mastery of. What do these skills look like in your classroom as you are asking students to demonstrate them? What does leadership look like in your classroom? What does teamwork look like in your classroom? Feel free to share in the chats. I know for me, I taught a lot of math, and so work ethic and perseverance was a big skill that I focused on, persevering through difficult problems, trying to problem solve from there. Helping peers with classwork is leadership. Try to set leaders up in group work, so give them the role in which to rise to, so that they know they can exhibit those leadership skills. Breaking up a complicated project into smaller tasks, good. That's definitely problem solving. Okay. Focusing on basic skills. Some students take care of their brothers and sisters, making them natural leaders. Absolutely, that responsibility that comes from helping their family members. And focusing on being prepared and being on time. Right, those are basic work ethic skills that can definitely be embedded from earlier ages. Respecting differences promotes productive teamwork. Yes, again, that disagreeing appropriately comes into play there. Listening, asking for help from peers or teachers equals teamwork. Yes, being able to have the confidence and the skill of asking for help can contribute to better teamwork. So some of those skills, we can see the natural connection between what we ask them to do in the classroom to outside of school. Work ethic, showing up on time, paying attention. Good. So what are some skills that maybe we teach in the classroom that we need to be more intentional to bring out and focus on in life outside of the classroom, outside of school? Managing emotions, problem solving, communication. Yes, how I communicate in school will differ from how I communicate with friends at work. Problem solving, communication. How can we help our students master the differences in communication at school versus outside of school? What are some thoughts? Skits, role play. That practice piece is vital. Discussions, role play, practice. Setting expectations and the generalization again. Absolutely. being able to take a skill and know its different applications across different settings and environments are going to really just accelerate their internalization of those skills and their ability to navigate the differences within those environments. Observing others demonstrating the skill. Good. Explicit instruction, monitoring process, and immediate feedback. Absolutely. All wonderful things. And just so you know, there's a posted blog that accompanies our webinar today that has a free download on generalizing and activities. Good. Mock interviews. Job shadowing. Thank you so much for sharing. Job shadowing, absolutely seeing those skills utilized in action in a real life setting. Project-based learning. Yes, PBL. All fantastic suggestions. Thank you so much for participating. Are there any other questions as our time comes to an end today? So the downloadable resource is available through the boystowntraining.org website under blogs, under today's heading for SEL learning. Is there any resource I can ask? I'm not sure of any resources we have at the moment. Kim, I see your question. But I can do some research and see if we have any resources and email them to you since we have your contact information. Thank you for sharing. We'll make a note of that. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a good rest of your day.